G'day fellas, and welcome to the civilization guide for the Malians. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Malians. We're going to be going over their strengths, their weaknesses, the landmark order that you're going to be taking, different unit compositions that you can use throughout the game, different strategic options that are available to you, and then we're going to be reviewing unique units to find out exactly how good they are. So let's get into it. What are the Malian strengths? So I've broken it down into two main parts. Number one is that the Malians have got an absolutely huge economy that they can invest in without using their population space. So one of the reasons why relics are so strong in this game is because they don't cost any population space, and the Malians get a couple of different mechanics that enable them to utilize a similar skill. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the pit mine. So the pit mine is something that needs to be built on a gold vein, and then you can build houses surrounding it, and that's going to pump you up to 90 gold a minute. Now it can go up to 120 gold a minute, but for the purpose of this, we're just going to assume it's 90 gold a minute. You can build up to 4 pit mines in a game, which takes you up to 360 gold a minute. That's a huge amount of gold. When you consider if you capture 5 relics, that's 400 gold a minute. It's essentially like you've got 5 relics that your enemy doesn't have. So that's the first part of it. The second part is the cow. One of the unique aspects of this civilization is going to be the cattle. So the cattle provides you a huge amount of bonus food throughout the game, and it doesn't cost any population space either. So you've got two huge mechanics here. One that provides 360 gold a minute in the form of the pit mine, and then cattle, which can provide up to 960 food a minute. It is a huge amount of food. I haven't done the math on how many villages this is the equivalent to, but I would assume probably in the region of like maybe 20 to 25 villages. It's a huge amount, and that means that you've got plenty of population space to supplement your army, because you're not using that population space on your economy. Subsequently, you're pumping it into your military. So that's one of their strengths. Another big strength of the Malians, and I think it's something that is largely undiscovered in the current meta. We will see it shift though in the future because of the changes that have happened to this mechanic. It is trade. They have, by far, in my opinion, the strongest trade in the game. It is absolutely insane, this civilization, when it comes to how good their trade is. Part of that is because of their landmark, the Sahara Trade Network, or Saharan Trade Network. They've also got great synergies with trade. So ideally, if there's an option for trade, I'm suspecting that it's going to get to the point where you're almost always going to be seeing trade come out on those maps, and the burden on the enemy to deny that trade. So those are the big strengths that I've identified here for the Malians. When it comes to the weaknesses of this civilization, it's not a conventional weakness, but rather it is a weakness because of its complexity. So much like the Chinese, they're a very difficult civilization to master. And part of the reason why is because there are so many things that you can invest in, similar to the Chinese. So when you're playing as the Malians, okay, you might age up and you're thinking, okay, should I expand with my additional pit mine? Should I get a second town center? Should I start thinking about my economic upgrades? Should I be thinking about going into cattle? There are so many options on the table for you. And part of this civilization's difficulty is, or weaknesses, is its difficulty, its complexity in those decision makings, and knowing what to do at the right time can be a very big skill and can set apart the great from the insanely good players. And so that is part of the reason why I would consider it a weakness, because it's not a straightforward civilization. Like, you look at a civilization like France, which is typically, in my opinion, the most simple, straightforward civilization. You stick your villagers on food, your villagers on gold, you start rallying to wood, you age up, you make a knight from your landmark. It's just really basic stuff, when here, there's actual decisions that need to be made. So that's part of the reasons why I think this is, that is one of the weaker civs, or rather, that is one of the weaknesses. So let's jump in and talk about their landmarks and about which landmark we're going to be taking in what situation. So typically for this civilization, well, like all civilizations, you've got access to 2 landmarks, with the exception of the Abbasid, of course. So the Manta Quarry and the Saharan Trade Network in the first age going into the second age. And so we're going to be taking a look at this landmark, the Manta Quarry, which is the landmark that you're going to be using, I would probably say 90% of the time. And it'll only depend on whether you actually get a good trade game. So you can take a look at the spawn that we've got here, and you can see where the trade post is. This isn't a good trade game. So even if, let's say I was playing like against the Abbasid dynasty and I wanted to go for trade and I wanted to absolutely pop off and have a massive trade empire, this isn't the map to do it. And now this is something that I've actually brought up with the devs, and look, I probably shouldn't say that, but the point is, the reason why this map doesn't work for trade is because this trade post is not in the corner of the map. it's in the middle of the map. So it means if I want to get a trade route going, I've got to like stick my market. I mean, I can stick it down here, but it's not going to be an optimal trade route. So the point of me, you know, my enemy denying my trade, well, they're not even going to need to deny my trade because the trade is just so poor in the first place. It's probably pulling in about a third of what it would be pulling in the corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load into a different map. We're just going to restart it and just to demonstrate the difference between the two sort of scenarios where you'd open up with the Malian Quarry versus the Saharan Trade Network. And keep in mind, you might not even open up with the Saharan Trade Network. You might just decide, you know what, I'm never going to bother doing it. So here we can see that we've got trade posts on the edge of the map, and this is conducive to actually having that trade start. Now, you could also argue that this trade post over here, it's a little bit too close, it's kind of in the middle, it's not all the way in the corner, but it is on the edge of the map, and it is on the edge of the map that is adjacent to you rather than onto the edge of the map that is closest to you. And because of that, it means that this is an appropriate spawn for you to be going for that trade. So, you know, this would potentially be one of those things, and you will need to scout your trading posts to find out exactly where they are as to whether you can be going for this. But 99% of the time, you're not going to be going for this, or 90% of the time, you're not going to be going for the Saharan Trade Network, at least at the moment. Who knows? Perhaps the meta shifts vastly in favor of the Saharan Trade Network. But at the moment, the Malian Quarry is what is in favor. So typically, you're going to be picking up this landmark. This is a great little landmark. It's a very simple landmark. It provides passive 75 gold or passive 75 stone. So there's different ways that you can use this landmark. So the first one is that you can just keep it on gold, have it working towards cattle, have it working towards your age up in age 3, or just have it paying off upgrades as they're coming through. That's the first one. Second one is that you can have it trickling towards a town center. So it's not too bad, 75 gold a minute. So you're talking about, you know, 4.5 minutes, maybe, what is it, 4 minutes and 40 seconds now since the change. And you're going to have enough stone for a town center. So you could even think about, you know, expanding out every time you've got stone with this. But one of the things that we do see top level players doing, at least at the moment, is they will just put this bad boy onto stone early on in the game, and they might go castle and they will drop a keep in the enemy base with the stone that they've got from this. And so the enemy won't see that coming because they'll be checking the stone outcropping, and it's sitting at 1200 out of 1200. They've been gathering stone the whole time with the Malian Quarry. Now we're going to turn on a little bit of a cheat right here in a jiffy, because we are in a jiffy, and we're going to make sure that landmark is popped. So what is the next landmark that you're going to be thinking about after this? The most common landmark that players at the moment are playing is going to be the Grand Fulani Corral. Now, this is a landmark that you have to be a little bit careful with. Now, we do see players going this landmark going naked. So what that means is basically putting this landmark down with absolutely nothing else around it. And you might be wondering, okay, what do you mean anything else around it? Well, this landmark, it buffs up your cattle. So it's improving them 20 food per minute, every single cattle. So your cattle, when they exist at the moment already, have or give a bonus food if they're stuck inside a cattle ranch. So you can see right now, so let's get 3 cattle out. These guys at the moment, I don't know what you guys are doing. You guys need to calm the hell down over there. So these cows at the moment, they don't do anything apart from look awesome. As soon as you put them in the cattle ranch, they're going to start providing 28 food a minute. So we're going to pop them in the cattle ranch, and that's going to start producing 28 food every minute. Now, it might be a little bit more than that, just simply because we got that in a jiffy cheat on, so watch out for that. But when they jump in this in this ranch, they're going to be going from 0 up to 28 food a minute, which is, you know, it's pretty cool. That's not too bad. Now, keep in mind, they're quite expensive, 100 gold each, but they start paying themselves off. So, you know, roughly 5 minutes, and it will have paid, well, actually, now that I think about it, closer to 3 to 4 minutes, and it's going to be paying itself off 28 food a minute. 28 food a minute? Yeah, 28 food a minute. But we can bring those numbers down. Those are rookie numbers. So what you can do is you can bump these up to 48 a minute through the use of this landmark. So when we talked a little bit earlier about naked Grand Fulani Corral, so you'll see players go to the castle age with the intention of filling out their Grand Fulani Corral with pastures or with ranches all around it. So you can fit... I think in total you want 7 around. So ideally you want to try and keep them as close as you can. So just like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 1 here. And then that way you can see they're very, very, very difficult to see. They're not like real buildings, if you know what I mean. But what we can do is we can now get 1, 2, 3, get 3 cows out here, 1, 2, 3 cows out here, 1, 2, 3 cows 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 here. And I think we've already got 3 cows here. Now, I don't know whether they're going to garrison. Let's have a look and see. Come on, hopefully I got this right. Did it work? Oh, it worked. Look at that. Let's see if I can nail this one. Look at this. All the cows are going out. So, remember before we were talking about cows and each one of them being 28 food? Well, now all of a sudden they're 48 food each. And you want to kind of keep them as close to this landmark as possible so that the landmark can buff them up And this is going to provide you a huge amount of food trickle throughout the game. It looks like we're missing one. Where's our last cow? Are we missing one? Yeah, we're missing one. Get out here, buddy. I can see. We've got 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and then 1. Am I missing it? I can't believe I'm missing a cow. Did they change it to 19? I might be blind. I must be blind. Oh, there. Oh, you cheeky little cow. You're over there. I'm not missing it. I'm just blind. Don't worry. So this little guy didn't get inside. So you can fill these out. So it's 3 out of 3 for all of them except for 1, which is going to be 2 out of 3 because you can have a maximum of 20 cows. That is it. That is the limit. So now all of these guys are going to be producing the equivalent of, well, we can do the math right now. So if a cow produces 28 and then that goes up to 48 and then we times it by 2 and then times it by 10, that is 960 food a minute that is getting produced here for free. Not taking any population, not doing anything. But obviously there's an opportunity cost when it comes to the landmark. And unlike the Ottomans, when it comes to the landmarks, they're not necessarily... I shouldn't say mutually exclusive because they are mutually exclusive, but there is a little bit of leeway as to how you want to play with the landmark. So the Malians, famous for their gold generation, or I guess the Malian Empire, famous for its gold. So if you open with the Mansa Quarry, and we type in right now, I think I just got to type in a jiffy. That is all. I don't need to type in the slash. Let me fix that up. There we go. In a jiffy. So you can actually go for the Farimba Garrison, which is a pretty cool landmark. I do like the concept of this landmark. It does scale throughout the game, but it is at a specific rate, though. So you're not going to be getting the same sort of economic benefits that you would be out of the other landmark. This is a very static amount. So you're just going to be paying gold, and it's going to be that reduced amount. So if you don't have the spare gold, it is going to be tough. So typically you would see the Farimba Garrison utilized when players are looking to go for a trade economy, just because you're going to have a lot of gold in the bag with the landmark. But you can definitely feel obliged to go either way when it comes to your age 3 landmarks. But for the most part, you're probably going to be sticking with the Mansa Quarry here. One of the things that I will remind you to do is if you are thinking about adding in a second town center, don't forget to switch it over. There's nothing worse than aging up and 2 or 3 minutes later going, oh, bloody hell, I forgot to hit the damn stone. Now I've got to wait an extra 2 or 3 minutes for my town center. It feels bad, man. You don't want to do it. But with the Farimba Garrison, the way that it works, it's batch training units based on, and reducing their costs. So you want to train Donzos? Great. Here's 5 Donzos all at the same time, and they're reduced cost, and you pay gold for them. So, you know, like add up the cost of a Donzo, and then reduce it by 20%, times it by 5, that sort of thing, and you've got what you've paid for these bad boys. So I do like this landmark. It is always going to be giving you benefits throughout the game. But when it comes to the total effectiveness of this landmark compared to the Grand Fulani Corral, I think most people are going to trend towards the Grand Fulani Corral, just simply because it provides you such a great flexibility in your food economy. So that's essentially your options when it comes to the Mansa Quarry. So we're going to take a look now at the Saharan Trade Network, and typically what the order is here is to go Saharan Trade Network into the Farimba Garrison. And the reason why is because typically you're going to be really behind when it comes to wood. So if we have a look, let's have a look at this map. Yep, so we got a great trade post here over on the edge of the map, so it's going to be very easy for us to trade. So hypothetically, if this was our map that we had discovered and we wanted to do some trade on this map, how would we play it out? So we'd be sending a villager over here to drop down our market eventually. We'd also send another villager to drop down another market over in this corner, and I'll explain why in a jiffy. But we also got to be very careful with how we watch or where we anticipate our traders will go. So I'm anticipating the traders will come, because there's no way to actually know this. I'm anticipating they'll come across the front like this. So I'm going to be looking to put our landmark right down here, and you got to kind of predict it. And you can see that you got to get it you got to really make sure that you get it right up against that wood line, because if they manage to sneak through, you're going to be missing out on a huge amount of resources here, and it's so frustrating. There's no real way that you can fix it other than like upending your entire trade network. So we're going to type in a jiffy. We've got cheats enabled, so that's going to hit us up to the next age. So we've got the Saharan Trade Network, and now we're going to drop down our market in the corner, and we're also going to drop down a proxy market right next to the trading post, and hope that everything works out perfectly. So we're going to send this market. We're going to start by setting our home marketplace here. So we're going to right click. That means any trader that comes out. So let's just get a trader out right here. So this trader is going to set its home market down to here, and then it's going to immediately collect gold. So what we're also going to do is we're just going to drop down a couple of houses, because I think it might be a wise idea just to demonstrate exactly how that would work. So let's delete this trader, and now you can see we've got it set up. It looks a little bit weird. It might seem a bit funky, but you pop this bad boy out, you pop a couple more bad boys out. Our little guy's doing their trade thing. He collects the gold, and now he's off straight away on his journey, or he or she, on his way to pick up some gold and go on to live a great life. But one of the great things about this civilization and about its strength through trade is that even if your traders don't actually make it, let's say a raid hits over here, well, look at this. Your traders have already started paying off because they've already made it through the Saharan trade network. And there's 36 resources right there for every single trader that's gone through. So even if you lose a trader down here, they're still kind of paying themselves back. And let's say a couple make themselves through or get through, 182 gold, mate. That is some serious gold that is coming through. And then, so that's typically the way that you would look to play a trade game like this. We're going to talk more about trade games, so we're not going to be covering build orders in this video. Build orders will be covered in a separate video, but essentially that's the way that you would look to do it. And then from here, you don't have a whole lot of resources, so you would be thinking about going to the Farima garrison because, as I mentioned, these guys are all carrying 182 gold, and what better way to spend your gold than on military units that only cost gold. So you can pick, you want some archers, there you go, have some more archers, have some more. Now they're popping out so fast because I've got the cheat on in a jiffy, but if I turn off that cheat and let's say we want to go for some archers, you can see it does take 22 seconds, which is the same length of time it takes for a normal archer to produce, but it is producing 5. So think of this as kind of like your Burgrave Palace for the Holy Roman Empire, except that you're paying gold for your units and you're also paying a reduced cost for that. But now we're going to have our traders coming in. Look at this. Now we got some juicy trade coming in. Now one of the other things to mention, and we'll talk about this plenty when it comes to the build order for the trade strategy, because that is definitely a big part of this civilization. It is going to be about getting more outposts up. But look at the income per minute coming through right now. 1,800, 2K. So it's really starting to stack up. We're sitting at 3K, very close to 3K income per minute right now. So that's typically it. Now, when it comes to the Age 4 landmarks, I've specifically avoided talking about them because, to be honest, I think that you can go either way with them. I tend to lean towards the Griot Bara. The Griot Bara, I'll show it to you guys now. So you begin a festival for 300 gold, and it gives you an enhancement to food gather rates, military production speed, or damage to torches. The big one here is the damage to torches and siege attacks. That's the big one, because when you need to bust through a keep, when you need to break through a wall, if you want to go for a landmark snipe, that right there is your best friend. The Griot Bara is also able to buff up food gather rates, but typically you're not going to be using a whole bunch of food. As far as I'm aware, I don't believe it affects your cattle, but I may be wrong on that. We could probably test that, but I don't know if there's any really solid way to test it. But typically, it's something that you would avoid using. You're going to be focusing on the military production speed as well as the damage of torches and siege attacks. When it comes to the Fort of the Huntress, it's just a standard keep, but all of your units go stealth around it. And I think this is a very basic or a very elementary bonus, just simply because, well, once you know where the keep is, you just avoid it. You don't go near it. Now, there is an added bonus here, which allows Musafadi warriors and gunners, which if we turn on in a jiffy, again, we can see that these units, let's age up. We'll go with a Griot Bara. These units have the ability to go into stealth. So you can see right here, we've got an ability to activate stealth. So they go stealth. And once they go into stealth, they actually gain an additional attack. I think it's called First Strike. And by having that First Strike, it gives them an increased amount of damage. But once again, I'm still not too satisfied with this ability because you've got Musafadi gunners getting double damage. Bro, these guys already do insane amounts of damage. They're already overkilling every single unit in the game. You don't need more damage. So it's one of those things where it's like, you know, if you're already killing units, you're just going to start killing them more. So to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go for that. So maybe if you're in a jiffy, if you're in a tight spot and you need a keep down immediately, maybe throw it down as your option. Otherwise, I think it's probably best just to stick to the Griot Bara, just because the military festival, look, if you're under pressure and you need to get units out in a jiffy, I can't stop saying it now, then you can just pump out units through the military festival. And by the same token, if you're looking to siege down an enemy, maybe maybe you're sieging down you know, a barbican or something like that, or a keep, and they're repairing it up, and they're going through wood, so it's pretty easy for them to repair it. Then you can just pump out the siege festival, and that's going to make your trebs deal double damage which is absolutely massive. So that's going to round out the landmark orders. When it comes to the unit composition, let's talk a little bit about that, because for me, I see two primary unit compositions for the Malians. Now, the Malians progress through the ages as a very, honestly, as a powerhouse civilization. I think this civilization's got a lot of power in the late game. I think that's probably where they are their strongest, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this civilization become a civ that could actually contest the English. I genuinely think as the meta continues progressing, we're going to see this civilization rise to S tier when it comes to the late game. Because at the moment, you guys will know the English are S tier. So let's talk about what your composition is going to look like in the first or in the second age. So we'll turn on in a jiffy. So in my opinion, the best composition that you can be running in the second age is a combination of donzos and javelin throwers. Now, these guys work amazingly together, and I've seen people use these to great effect, even up against French. And you guys know the French combination of units in the early game is insane. It's unrivaled, right? Well, unrivaled up until now. That's because this combo is insane. So how does it work exactly? So you've got donzos, which are going to be acting as your spearmen, and you've got javelin throwers, which are going to be pretty much killing absolutely everything else. And so the whole idea is that your javelin throwers are going to be targeting down the enemy archers, and you can see they've got quite a long range, 6 tiles of range. They've also got a huge amount of ranged armor. And keep in mind, once you start stacking things like the armor bonuses on top of this, so once you start getting iron undermesh, well, now that goes to 4 armor. And so these guys, you know, against China as an example, these guys are insane. Javelin throwers absolutely destroy them. But what you want to be doing is you want to be picking off your enemy archers with your javelin throwers, and then using your donzos to defend your javelin throwers here. So essentially, it's kind of like the archer spear combination, except that your archers kill enemy archers very, very effectively. And you can see they've got a huge amount of damage on them. Now, they don't attack as fast as an archer. If we take a look at how fast an archer attacks, you can see that an archer attacks every 1.62 seconds, compared to a javelin thrower, which is 2.12? Yeah, 2.12 attack speed. So it's quite a bit a bit slower, rather. Not a bit thrower, but I guess it's also technically a little bit thrower. So what we're going to do is I'm also going to show just their attack animations, which is quite an important thing. So we've got a little sheep over here. We'll display this. But when it comes to microing this unit and just timing and the way that it overkills things, there's a couple of things you need to be cautious of. So number one is the time it takes for your projectile to actually hit with this unit is very long. So we're going to command both of these guys to attack this sheep. Did you see that? The archer got his shot off, but the javelin thrower didn't even throw his spear yet. So we're going to do it once again. See how long it takes for that javelin throw to actually hit the target? And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it becomes a very dangerous, a double-edged sword in the late game. So I would argue that it's a great idea to go for this unit in the early stages of the game. But once you start moving into the late game, once you start talking about those big army compositions of, 80 units, 100 units, want to avoid these guys because they overkill very, very badly. Because when you look at these units, okay, so we're doing 12 damage here versus a ranged, you right-click a crossbow, you're going to be doing like 200 damage to it. More than enough to kill it. So you're going to be overkilling it, but not only that, the unit might be dead by the time you throw all of your javelins because maybe your archers hit the enemy or maybe your donzos hit the enemy. So you've got to be really careful with these guys. So I think in lower numbers, in the early, even in the mid game, in like anything under, I think 25 is probably fine because it's quite decent to micro. You just grab a group like this and you just go shift, 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 and then you go shift, 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 shift like that with the second group, and they're just going to start. I mean, here you can assume that I've done an attack command, and I'm attacking individual units. And then you're just going to be defending with your donzos, and it's very, very easy to do. The donzos also have a ranged attack, which does very, very well against cavalry. So this unit composition is incredible in the early game, in the mid game as well. So expect to see a couple of fast castle strategies coming out where players utilize this unit composition. But once you start heading towards the mid game, that's when you want to start be sleeping, or rather, that's when you want to start be switching to the sofa. Don't sleep on the sofa. It is incredibly strong. So the sofa is it's kind of half horseman, half knight. And I know that sounds a little bit weird, but let me explain. So it's not a heavy, well, it is technically a heavy melee cavalry, but it's got a fast movement speed. You can see right here, 1.73 movement speed. So faster than a knight, a little bit slower than a horseman. Not as much armor as the knight, but still pretty decent. Now, let's talk about what happens when this bad boy starts evolving, once it starts getting a little bit of the Pokemon theme going. So we're just going to age up, don't worry about the landmark, and we're going to start talking about the upgrades. So the sofa, it is a base age 2. unit, which means that when it goes up to age 3 now, it's going to get upgraded to 3 and 3. We can see it right there. And then on top of that, we're also going to get +2. So now you can see we're up to a total of 5 ranged armor, which doesn't seem that bad. But hold on a minute. We're then going to go up to the Imperial Age. And now this is where the sofa starts to get incredible, because the sofa is going to be going up, or rather, I just realized we've got imported cavalry or imported armor, which is available to you in the Castle Age. So I do apologize. You know what? We're just going to restart this. We're just going to do it right again. I mean, we're here in the YouTube video. It's not really restarting it. I mean, you guys are riding along with me. But I guess I just want to demonstrate just how strong this unit is and how hard it spikes with this technology. So you guys will be familiar with the concept of armor cladding for the English men-at-arms. Let's go in a jiffy. All right, so armor cladding is a notoriously strong technology. Well, you've essentially got the same thing down here, imported armor, which increases the armor of the sofa. So once it's available once you get into the Castle Age, and this is going to increase its armor by 2. So now you can see we've got a total of 5 armor on these bad boys. And you throw into that the blacksmith upgrades. And keep in mind, this is in the Castle Age. Okay, so let's get both of our armor upgrades. And now you're talking about a unit with 7 armor. 7 armor in the Castle Age. That's a lot. That's a lot. It has huge breakpoints with 7 armor. And it makes it incredibly strong against units like the Horsemen, and it's a very, very strong unit. And then, of course, once we get to the Imperial Age, just to show you the full upgrade, so we'll get the Elite upgrade here, and then also get the +3, and you are talking about 9 armor on these bad boys. So this unit is incredibly strong. Now, not only is it incredibly strong when it comes to this defensive purpose, but it also provides an aura to nearby infantry. So that increases your infantry movement speed by 15%. And if there's anything you guys know about infantry movement speed, it is that it is a good thing to have, especially when you're focusing on archers, which is the second unit in the composition. So earlier we talked about the Donzo and the Javelin Thrower. Here we're talking about the Archer and the Elite Sofa, or rather just the Sofa. So I suspect this is probably going to be the go-to combination for most players in the late game, maybe even in the mid game. You know, after you've moved away from that early game composition that players will typically move into this. Now the Archers for this civilization are very strong as well. We will talk more about that, but you can see here the Archer gets buffed up, additional movement speed, so 1.44 movement speed here. Pretty darn fast when you compare that to an Archer without at 1.25. So it's going to be impossible for your enemy to outrun you. You can literally catch any infantry unit. You can catch Palace Guards with your archers. That's how fast they are. Palace Guards run at 1.38. These guys run at 1.44, so incredibly fast. And the thing is, you don't even need these guys in formation. You just need them around. Like, you think of the meta from the Ottomans, you need to be in formation. Well, here you don't even need to be in formation, and you get 15% movement speed. It is an insane amount of movement speed. So I wish the devs would have a bit of inspiration with regard to the Sofa and how good that is for the meta. But let's talk about the upgrades that you can get on top of that for the archers. So you don't get incendiary arrows. So if we take a look at the university, or the madrasa rather, as it's called here for the Malians, they don't actually have access to the incendiary arrow technology, which is typically one of the best technologies that you can get in the late game. But what they do get, and this is available to you in the Castle Age, is poisoned arrows. So once you've got your upgrade in the Castle Age and you've got your veteran archer, maybe you've got +2, because why not? Okay, so you're going to pick up poisoned arrows, which is going to give you 3 damage over 6 seconds, and it also makes your arrows a very cool purple color. You can see right there, and it's going to dish out that damage. Good night, sweet prince. Good night, sweet prince. Nailed it. But in addition to that upgrade, so you can see these archers are putting out some DPS, right? In addition to that, we've also got precision training, which further increases it by another 2. And this is in the Castle Age. Keep that in mind. So you've got 11 damage archers in the Castle Age. Of course, once you get to Imperial Age as well, these guys are going to be pumping out a beautiful 12 damage. So not as good as, say, the enemy fully upgraded elite archers, but still an incredibly strong unit. And they do have that damage per second, which does bypass armor. So very good against say your knights. I'm pretty confident the poison does also stack as well, which means that you can focus down knights quite easily and bypass that armor. Now, this is essentially what you're going to be running in the late game. At least this is my opinion. And typically you're going to be going for the split push strategy. If you've ever played Dota 2, you're basically just looking to not have a conventional game, but rather any fights that you do take, you'll do pretty well in, but you want to try and run past your enemy. You just want to be running little flanks, you know, 7 archers, 5 sofa, and you're just going to take this and you're just going to run it into the enemy base, that sort of thing. So that's going to be your unit compositions that I foresee coming out as the main unit compositions for the Malians. So now that we've talked about unit compositions, let's begin moving into the next phase where we're actually going to be reviewing a couple of replays and talking about the strategic options for the Malians. So we'll jump into a couple of games that I played earlier, and just to demonstrate a couple of different build orders for it. Now, we're not going to go into detail about these build orders. We're just going to take a very quick look at them here, but we will be following up the build orders in a separate video. So if you want to go through those in depth, then I encourage you, make sure you go watch that video. So the first one that we're going to be talking about is a heavy feudal age, which has a delayed town center. So the idea is that we're eventually going to add in a second town center, but we're not going to do it super duper soon after. So how does it work? Well, it just works with a standard Malian opening. You're just filling out your pit mine in the early stages of the game, and then looking for your age up. And then from there, once you go up, you're going up with the Mansa Quarry. Once you reach into the next age, the key thing that you're going to be looking to do here is establish control across the map. So we're going to be pushing out with those 2 primary units that we talked about. So the first unit that we're going to be moving out with is the Don Zone. You can see the racks now coming down. And once again, if you want to see this build order in more detail, I will be posting a video with that one. We're making sure that the Mansa Quarry is on stone. And then we're working to just try and control our enemy, keep tabs on them, see what they're doing. We're early in the game, 5 minutes 30, and we're now going to apply some pressure out to the enemy, try and force them off stone. And then behind this, we're also adding in an archery range where we are getting through our javelin throwers. And the javelin throwers are going to deal with any enemy archers. And you can see it's about that time that archers would come out. Now, of course, I'm playing against an AI, so don't really consider this as a real game, but rather just a demonstration. And then behind this, we're going to be moving out to have that second town center dropped in. And you can see our villagers now moving out over towards this area to drop down our second town center, looking to secure a hut. So this is the first type of style that you can play with this civilization. The second type of strategic option that you've got available to you is a 2 town center fast castle. So a 2 town center fast castle is probably a little bit more of an advanced strategy, just simply because you need to know when to hold it and you need to know when to fold it. I'm in a game here up against the Abbasid dynasty. Once again, it is an AI, so it is one of those games where you've just got to trust me on this one. Look, this is a common strategy that we do see players at the top level doing quite often. So a little bit of a different opening here on the build order. Once again, we'll be making a separate video for the build order to go over it in detail and talk about the way that it works, the same way that we did with the Ottomans. But here what the focus is looking to get up to the second age with as many resources that we can put towards that second town center, with ideally dropping the second town center as soon as we get up to the next age. And then from there, moving into the castle age as quickly as we can. There's also a couple of little adaptations that you can do, but you can see the age ups coming through, 5 minutes and 10 seconds, and we've already got the town center coming down. So nice and early TC. No 5 minutes 30, no 5 minutes 40 TC. This is I think it was a 5 minute 10. I think technically we had enough resources at 5 minutes. But from there, what we're doing is we're then filling out pit mines. So you can see pit mine number 1 is filled out. Pit mine number 2 on the backside is getting filled out. And we're going up to the castle age. And we're looking to try and do that at a competitive time. And as I mentioned, you've got to know when to hold it. You've got to know when to fold it. Against the Abbasid dynasty, they're going to be going 2-3 TCs. So it might be a good idea for you to think about a strategy like this. And you can see now we've got the age up coming through. Pretty decent time here, 9 minutes 30. And we're almost up on this, and that's with pastures, that's with cows coming out towards this. I think we've got cows on the way, yeah. So you can see we're starting to work towards that cow economy, and we've got double stable for our sofa production. So you can see where this kind of strategy is going for, but it is one that is typically going to be a bit more advanced, and you really have to know when to use this. The last strategy is one that I would also advise as a bit more complex. I think people largely are going to be trending towards a heavy feudal style, adding in that second town center eventually, and from that, so this is where I think it gets a little bit more complex. So this one is your trade opening. So the concept with the trade is that you want to go pretty big in the Dark Age and try and maximize your pit mine as much as possible. And with that, you can see we're actually chopping a second straggler so that we can fill this out completely so that we can maximize our gold income as early as possible. And you can see we're going to rise over 200 gold. We're going to be nowhere near the age up, but that's okay because all this gold is going to get reinvested back into traders. We need to make sure that we have got a conducive map to trade because we've got a really good one here with the market, or rather the trade post behind the town center. And then from here, we're going to be sending villagers into the corners of the maps so that we've got markets that can go down. So we've got our first market coming down right next to the trade post and our second market in the north of the map, which we're going to be trading from. And now the question is just going to be about defending. And once again, this is going to be a bit more of an advanced strategy. You're going to have to know when to hold it. You're going to have to know when to fold it. And we can see that the trade has already started coming out. And you've got absolutely big trade that comes out very, very quickly here. And it starts to rise incredibly fast. So this trade, well, this market's already at 11 traders 8 minutes into the game. And I'm not, this isn't even my final form. And at the same time, we're starting to wall across the map. So this is the third playstyle that I do predict or foresee that we'll see with the Malians, looking to try and defend with Sofa and try and get up to the castle age relatively quickly so that you can start working towards that big mass of archers and Sofa. But the reason why you want to play Sofa Archer in the feudal age here is because you need that mobility. You need to be able to follow the enemy, you need to be able to chase them down, and you need to be able to make sure that their raids are stopped. Eventually, you want to get those full walls up, probably prioritize those a bit more than I did here. I'm up against the AI, so I'm not too fussed about it. But that is essentially it, and you can see the economy really starts to take off at this point in time. Easy AI finally reaching feudal age 13 minutes in. Not too relevant, but we're up at about 2,500 gold a minute, and we'll just slow it down just so we can see. But we've got 32 traders out here. You can see they've got 5 trades that they've completed here for 173 gold a pop right there. So it is absolutely great stuff. This kind of strategy, and then of course going into the Furuma garrison to pump out even more units. You can see we've got plenty of production here, but it doesn't even matter. We're just going through it. We got so many damn production facilities out here. You can see all the units that we got back here. So that's the third play style that I foresee happening here, or the third strategic option that you've got with the Malians. Now we're going to focus a little bit more on their unique units. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about what it is that makes their unique units good, what makes their unique units bad, and talk about, you know, whether they get a thumbs up or whether they get a thumbs down, because they've got quite a different roster to most civilizations. They've got only the archer, or the archer is the only unit they share. Every other unit is a unit that is unique to them. So let's start our age up. Let's get that up in a jiffy. We'll get a couple of houses down as well. We'll drop down an archery range. We'll drop down a stable, and we'll start talking about these units. So there we go. So we'll start. I guess we can talk about. You know what? We can talk about all the units. Why not? Let's talk about all the units. You drop that landmark down. I love how I'm like commanding these guys to build landmarks, like 3 villages on the landmark, and like, come on, man, hurry up. All right, there we go. All right, so first unit that we're going to be talking about is the Donzo. Donzo, just out of the gates, gets a massive thumbs up. This is a great unique unit, one of the best in the game, in my opinion. Definitely an S tier, and an absolutely great spearman. If I was building a civilization and they said, what spearman do you want on your team? Donzo, first pick, 100%. An incredible unit. Now, you pay a little bit more for him, 30 wood, compared to the 20 wood that you pay for a spearman. But he comes with an extra melee armor. He also gets a ranged throw that you can use. He's an incredibly top talent. I love him. I think he's amazing. This unit, as I mentioned earlier, combos very well with a couple of other units. So you can just go for Archer and Donzo, or you can go for Javelin Thrower Donzo, which is probably my favorite composition. But definitely Donzo at the moment, he gets a thumbs up. And he's strong throughout the whole game. That's just it. Like, he never falls off. He's just always good. He's always relevant, always attacking, always, you know, never gives up, never surrenders. Massive thumbs up. Next unit we're going to be talking about is the Musafati Warrior. Now, this guy unfortunately gets a thumbs down. Musafati Warrior, or I say this guy. I mean, it's technically a woman, so I should say this girl. This girl gets a thumbs down. Why does she get a thumbs down? Well, I think her stealth is really cool, and I think the way that the unit works is interesting. The issue that I've got is that there just doesn't seem to be a really decent spot for it. Of course, you want to be making it, you know, if you're playing up against the Holy Roman Empire, you pretty much only want to be making these units. And we've seen it pop off in a couple of games. We've seen it go pretty well once you get to the Imperial Age. But sure, if you're up an age on your enemy and you're up like 7 upgrades on your enemy, anything is going to look good. And so because of that, I think that at the moment, the Musafati Warrior, it's got a bit of a difficult place. It's more of a reactive unit rather than anything. It's not something that you can be proactive with. And when we compare the Donzo and the Javelin Thrower as those proactive units where your enemy's really got to try and deal with them, the Musafati Warrior is a unit that just finds itself being countered all the time. So it is technically considered light melee infantry. And if you know anything about light melee infantry, it gets absolutely destroyed by archers. And archers, are quite common for civilizations to spec into. So it makes it difficult to justify going for Musafadi warriors. In addition to that, they've also got a gold cost as well. It is quite a hefty gold cost. So I would just advise steering clear of them unless you're against Holy Roman Empire and you're having a lot of trouble with men-at-arms. Next up, we're going to be talking about the archery range. Now, the archer, it is not a unique unit, but it does have unique upgrades. I'm a big fan of it. I like the way that it spikes in the third age. It's got some huge upgrades, so you can see that we've got veteran upgrades, we've got poison arrows, and then we can also get the additional blacksmith upgrades, which we talked about in the last game. And so because of that, I think that there's quite a lot of potential in the third age for this unit to pop off. But other than that, it doesn't really have a lot going for it. So you can see we've got 1, 2 damage, and then we've got another 3, 4 damage right there. So the veteran archer, definitely in a league of its own when it comes to the castle age timings for the Malians. But for the most part, so it's definitely going to get a thumbs up, but it is not a unique unit. So we're just going to delete him because, well, you're not a unique unit, buddy. Next up, the javelin thrower. This unit, it's kind of a half thumb up, half thumb down. I'm a big fan of this unit in the early game, as I've talked about before. I think it's a great unit in the early game, but you've got to be careful with it because look at that wind-up animation. It takes some time to hit that wind-up animation. It really, you know, to get that wind-up animation going, you've got to be quite careful. So with micro with this unit, you've really got to be careful because you can see right there that, you know, if you're playing with a little bit of lag and you click at the wrong time, your units aren't going to throw off. And if you're doing an attack move or something like that, and oh, there he goes, you know, it's just that little bit off. So you've got to be very careful of that. They've also got the potential, or I guess we could say the propensity to overkill units, just simply because you want to try and mass these guys up. And when you do mass them up, then they start overkilling things just because, well, it's nice to have a lot of them. But other than that, I think that they're a very solid unit in the early game, a very difficult unit to counter just simply because they synergize so well with the Donzo. And this composition in the early game, it is an unrivaled composition, something that I think is probably going to be nerfed. I don't really see how they can maintain the strength of both of these units in the early game, but who knows? You know, we haven't seen the Malians rise to the S tier just yet. So maybe once, you know, I guess maybe once battering rams got buffed, we might see Malians come up a little bit because I do think that they are a very strong civilization in the feudal age. It's just that early feudal, which is when they're strong, just isn't the strongest time to be strong. Anyway, we move on to the next unit now. So this one got a thumbs up and it got a thumbs down. Next one that we've got is the Musafadi Gunner. This unit's also going to get a thumbs up and a thumbs down. It's one of those weird units. So when it comes to the cost for this unit, you're paying a little bit more on the gold side, a little bit less on the food side. So that is a bit of a negative, but I guess it kind of balances it out with regard to the economy of this civilization. Now, one of the things to note is this girl can enter invisibility. And she also picks up a couple of other bonuses from things like the Fort of the Huntress. But for the most part, it's basically just a normal hand cannoneer. Nothing too crazy about her. As far as I'm aware, yeah, high cost, high damage, can enter stealth, increase. Oh, she does have increased movement speed. Well, I guess that's decent. You know what? I'm going to take it back. I'm gonna take it back. I'm gonna say get rid of that thumbs down. I'm gonna give her a thumbs up just for the increased movement speed, because when you combine the sofa with that, so if we were to go for Rimba leadership, now all of a sudden she's running at 1.44 movement speed, and that is incredibly fast. So just because she's got that increased movement speed, I'm giving that a thumbs up. Now, speaking of thumbs up, say hello to my friend, the ultimate thumbs up. I love this guy. I reckon the sofa is one of the coolest units in the game. It is a very, I mean, it looks like a very normal unit, but it's not until the late game or even the castle age that it really starts to shine. Once you get to the late game, it's all over Red Rover. The sofa starts to take over. Do not sleep on this unit. But in the early game, it's always going to be a little bit slower, just simply because the damage isn't as high as the knight, so it's not as effective at raiding. By the same token, it's not as fast as the horseman, so it's not as effective as raiding on that front. But once this unit starts getting its serious upgrade, so main one is imported armor, and it's a very cheap upgrade as well, 100, 250. Very, very nice. Available to you in the castle age. You start putting in some serious stats. This has got a base of 5, and then obviously you get both of your +2s in. You're talking massive armor. And then once the elite upgrades come in, it's just, yeah, it's incredible stuff. So massive thumbs up for the veteran sofa here. Final unit that we're going to talk about is the Scout. A lot of people might be looking at the Scout and going, what are you talking about, Drongo? The Scout? Yeah, we're talking about the Scout, baby, because this guy gets an upgrade to the Warrior Scout. That is right. When you hit the feudal age, you can go to the Warrior Scout. He gets a thumbs up. He gets a big thumbs up. I'm a big fan of this unit. I think that it's very niche, though. Now, we've seen players like Beastie look to try and use this as the main part of their army. To not... What? Hey, are you? I think we've got someone in here role-playing as a sheep. That rivals the Abbasid villager voice line right there. That was wow. It's either that or a baby. I heard my son in there. I have to go check on him. But yeah, for me, the Warrior Scout, it's one of those niche units, and you got to know when to use it, you got to know when to abuse it, and then you got to know when to lose it. And so one of the big things is that when you upgrade your Warrior Scout or your Scouts into Warrior Scouts, it's a very cheap upgrade, but it's also going to change the way that their stats work. So their stats increase significantly, so they go faster, but they also increase in cost as well. And in addition to increasing in cost, they also so they get faster movement speed, and that's the big thing, that they get faster movement speed, because it means that if you do look to come out and do some potential hunting in the form of professional scouts, which I am almost 100% certain this is going to be a strategy, professional scouts. So I don't think we can really show a before and after, but just know that if you were to come and collect one of these deers that were out here with a normal scout, you're going to be going a lot slower than a warrior scout. The warrior scout moves at 1.22 movement speed, almost enough to outrun a spearman. So it moves very, very quickly. And this is, it is a huge bonus for the warrior scout, just simply because it can move these deer back in, and a huge bonus for the civilization. So I'm a big fan of this. It also fills a pretty decent role in the late game. So you know that position in the late game where you're on the offensive, or maybe even on the defensive, and you're just kind of spamming out units non-stop, and you're like, oh crap, I've only got food left? Well, good news. You can make elite warrior scouts. You can spam these guys out 90 food each, and you just bring them to the party like this, and you make a whole bunch of them. You get them out like this, and you're fine. Now, they're not the perfect unit. It's not the best unit. You'd still rather a horseman. You'd still rather a knight. You'd still rather a sofa. That is for sure. But if you've only got food, these guys are plugging that hole. So I'm a big fan in that regard. As I mentioned before, I still don't think it is 100% the right thing to be doing and trying to max out your army on this, because it is a very cheap unit to be maxing out. Ideally, you'd want to be maxing out on sofas, on Musafari gunners in the late game. But I think overall, this unit is a definite thumbs up. All right, well, that is going to be it, fellas. I hope you guys have enjoyed this look at the video. We'll be coming at you guys with a build order video for the Malians. That'll have 3 build orders in it. We'll be going over that heavy feudal delayed TC, the 2 TC fast castle, and the 1 base trade strategy that we've got for you. So watch out for that one, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.